Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and I'm very happy because today I have a filmmaker who, well, I'm a fan, and you're also a really nice person. So I've got Rene Gannon-O'Gara here. Hey, Rene.
Hello.
And we met because your film Donut was at Film Invasion LA in 2023, which happens to be almost a year ago. And Donut kicks serious fucking ass. I always like to start off with the cursing since this podcast has the explicit warning. But I'll just add that at Film Invasion Los Angeles, Donut won the Grand Jury Award for Best Feature Film Drama. And your main supporting performer, who I was supposed to ask you how to pronounce their name, but Pavli Serenetsky?
Yep, that's right.
I pulled it off. They won Best Performer in a Supporting Role Drama. So there you go. Yeah. Double award winning at Film Invasion LA. And I thought that was a really great screening, too. Really fun night. You did bring donuts.
I did, yeah.
and my kid who was doing the ticket taker, I believe she ate about a third of the donuts you brought.
Yeah, that's good.
During the screening. But there was some left over at the end.
Yeah.
But, and I should mention, before I dive into your life, that people can watch Donut on TVHi.
It's live.
Just go to I know, it went live this week. So that's really cool timing. That's actually super unusual for this silly little podcast I do. It's only like, when you're ready, it'll be. But it's on. So if people go to watchtvhi.com, shit, they can just do a free trial and watch Donut and see why I love it so much. Yeah. And I forgot to tell you before we started recording, I was in that room right there when I first saw Donut. And to show my insecurities as a festival programmer, I kept looking over at my wife, who was on the couch too, and I kept going, "This thing's fucking brilliant, isn't it?" She kept going, "It is." I'm like, "It's not just me. Like, this is really, really good." And she'd go, "No, it's really, really good." Like, because when you're watching an indie feature, needless to say, if you ever are in my shoes and watching hundreds of films in a few months that have been submitted to a festival, the ratio of quality shorts is higher than the ratio of quality features. Like, it's really hard to make a quality feature.
Yeah. It's easy to overextend, I think, beyond your means and try to do something that you can't accomplish.
And maybe start with an idea that's not good enough for to go over an hour with.
Yeah, but shorts do that. So
shorts do that. That is one of the funniest things is when you turn to people, when the jury talks amongst ourselves, it's like, how can a 9-minute short be too long? But sometimes they are.
Yeah.
Sometimes they would have been perfect at 6.
That's how it goes.
That's how it goes. All right, sir. I'm just going to ask you the straight-up question now.
Yeah,
We're just going to jump into the interview because my interview is so sophisticated. I ask one question, but then I'll pepper them in as I listen.
Yeah.
It's more, my job is to listen after this intro, which is, so Donut's a very creative film. Very, I find it very original. So you're a creative person. When did you get this creative bug? When did you get into storytelling or photography? Because as I recall, I didn't say it in your intro, but you wore a lot of hats. Like this was a very self-made, homemade kind of film.
Yeah, definitely. I think more in the spirit of DIY than me necessarily being the best at all of the jobs. But yeah, I mean, my family is all pretty creative. I come from on both sides of my family, my grandfather sort of retired into creative jobs. My dad's dad became a storyteller and ran a storytelling festival for a long time in Northern California. And my mom's dad wrote poetry. I mean, he had written poetry his whole life, I think, but that sort of became his main focus. And let
me jump in. Jump in. Like, a storytelling festival is fascinating. Is that people just getting up? Is that like spoken word kind of stuff? Getting up and just telling stories live? Or reading off your work?
No, it was it was programmed with professional storytellers, and it was in the Patrick's Point State Park up in Humboldt County in Northern California. And so it would be outdoors in this like sort of amphitheater in the redwood forest in the summertime. And yeah, there was a little like storytelling crew that he had, that, would, no one was making a killing at it, but most of their engagements were like, going.
You mean telling stories in the woods doesn't make you a billionaire? It's not like a tech.
Yeah. But they would. They were professionals in the sense that they were, like getting hired to go to elementary schools and libraries and telling stories that way. And there's also the Yurok Reservation is there, and the Hupan tribe is also nearby. And so there would always be like native storytellers who would come by. There was actually this is from when I was a child, so I'm just pulling from my memory as well as I can.
I know I asked you the hardest question, which is think back to the stuff you were exposed to as a little kid.
But there would be a whole like section for native storytellers, and there was at midnight on the Saturday they would have like the ghost story section, and where they'd have some hot cocoa, and I don't know, it was very fun. And also I think through that my grandfather got really into like learning about his and our family's like Irish heritage and stuff. So he would tell a lot of Irish stories. So I think that connection was also important in my sort of development and thinking about, or the idea before me thinking of myself as a storyteller was like those sort of things filtering in. And then on the other side of the sort of spectrum, my other grandfather was, he was a poet, but he had a very rules-based idea of how poetry should be, which I found very interesting. I mean, it's different than how I think of poetry mostly.
Well, poetry changed so much in the last century.
Totally. Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, but it was like I wrote a poem at school once it was really, when I was 8 or something like that, and I for my mom's birthday, I like wrote it out nicely on a nice piece of paper to give to her as a present. And then my grandfather was visiting, and he corrected it.
He did the red pen.
Yes. He was like, this should be here for the meter, and like the certain number of syllables. And I don't know, it's very it was an interesting learning experience to sort of get his.
So he was one of those poets who was like, these beat poets, they're ruining everything. This E.E. Cummings, what's with the Noah capitals?
Yeah,
that motherfucker has to capitalize some shit already.
I'm not really sure. He passed away when I was like 11, so it would have been interesting to have a more like adult conversation with him about what he actually thought, because I'm not sure if he was. I'm not sure how much he thought that was all wrong, or if he just was just doing his best to do
just wasn't for him. Sure. He could have been open-minded. Here I am painting him totally unfairly.
Yeah. It's
But then again, he did correct the little kid's poems. So I mean, maybe he was a little strict in his beliefs about poetry.
Yes,
but again, back to you.
Yeah.
Obviously, being exposed to storytellers and wordsmiths.
Yeah,
huge influence on a kid.
And then also both my most of my grandparents would like to sing songs to us, and my one of my grandmas got sort of into photography for a little while, and so everyone was doing like creative things. And as you know, my dad, who sings a song in the movie, is also a singer-songwriter. He's been been doing that for his whole life, basically. And my mom was also very creative, doing, I guess, mostly visual art, kind of like collages and drawing and stuff like that. So, so I guess I've just been around it for a long time. And so, when I was in elementary school, I got into writing poetry, and I got a little bit into some like theater stuff. I got kind of into Shakespeare, and then
don't laugh. It's actually legit. It's so legit. I understand the humility of it.
Yeah.
But it does speak to kids. A lot of it speaks to kids.
Definitely. I mean, especially I was very into performance at that time, and then I definitely got less interested in performing myself after I became a teenager. And then in middle school, I started making like little movies with friends, joke movies or stuff on YouTube, stuff to go on YouTube or whatever. I guess late middle school and more that was more of a high school thing. So that's sort of where I started getting into making movies. The other thing just about my family is that we're really into going to movies.
So attendance was.
Yeah. I like my especially my dad's family. And we really love popcorn. So it's kind of there's definitely my dad and I would go to the movies and just get one of the refillable buckets of popcorn and eat the whole thing, get the refill, and then it's time for the movie. We'll go inside. So that's sort of the vibe. And I'm very I guess very critical in the sense of critics of movies. Like we would talk about them and stuff. Especially my dad's dad and that side of the family, I think. So that was sort of part of the interest. So,
which is going to naturally make you pay more attention to the craft, right? Because there are people who see a movie and then on their way out they go, "It was good," and that's it. But if there's analysis, if there's thinking about it, then for a young person, you're going to be hearing what adults are saying, critiquing it, saying what they did and didn't like and stuff, and that's certainly going to make you aware of, because there's no more complicated art form, really. There's nothing with as many moving parts as film. Yeah,
definitely. And both my dad's parents were school teachers as their job, and my grandma taught reading. That was like her main thing. And so they were big readers, and they were always like discussing books or discussing movies, or it was a lot of thinking about story in general, which makes sense because,
No, I'm smiling because you grew up in a family that appreciated the arts, which not everyone does. Yeah. And it's just beautiful. I want to say the joke of if you'd said, "I want to be an accountant," they would have been like, "Huh?" Yeah. Whereas you saying, "I want to be creative," it probably was not earth shattering for anyone.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's
so casting your dad was a nice move.
He's pretty good at singing.
No, it's wonderful. It's very funny. I didn't mean to jump to that.
Yeah.
But so you're going to move. So enjoying the art form of film.
Yeah.
With analysis afterwards. That's huge. So you grew up around that.
Definitely.
Only child?
No, I have an older brother who's a full brother, and then my parents separated, and I have a stepsister and two younger brothers as well, half brothers.
Gotcha.
Who are also both in the film. They're in the teenagers. Two of them are my brothers. Okay, so and then in high school, I went to Culver City High School. So we had this thing called AVPA, which something visual and performing arts. It was like an after school program that I think was tied in with the community college, and Sony maybe was helping fund it or something like that. So it had theater and film and visual arts and dance and all these different arts programs. So we had a really great film program there that I ended up sort of getting involved in, and my cinematographer Ben Mullen, one of the people that I started making movies with in middle school and high school, he was in that, and I've known him since preschool, so we we go way back. So yeah, I guess that's sort of when I started getting more practically into making movies and learning like the craft a little bit more, learning how to use equipment and that kind of stuff, and also making friends with people who were exposing me to more different kinds of films, more like. I guess that's the age where I start going to movies by myself or with friends or something, you know. So one of my friends, Justin Kelly, who would always, he and I would go to the LACMA used to have great movie screenings, which sadly have gone away in the, what was it called? The Bing Theater or something? Do you remember that?
Yeah, LACMA, there is a great theater. And Film Independent would have screenings at LACMA years ago.
They had really amazing programming. And actually, it sort of, it ties in with Donut because I think I was telling you at the mixer that Hong Sang-soo, this Korean director, was a big influence on, I guess, both the aesthetic and sort of but more the production approach that I took for Donut. And they did a retrospective of him it must have been in 2007 or 8 or something. And he was there, he introduced some of his movies, and they were just, I don't know, they were very impactful on me at that time. And I also saw like Tarkovsky screenings. I mean, all of this stuff that's like, it's so incredible to see on the big screen. And there was I feel like now there's sort of an independent, and what do you call it? Art house movie theater scene that's like getting a lot bigger in LA again. But there was kind of a dearth for a little while after LACMA.
There was actually, you just almost kind of surprised me that the dearth might be over. Because I mean, from my side of the world, like when the Laemmle Theater chain in LA started showing Marvel movies, it was like, okay, that used to all be indie or European or from overseas. Yeah. But I was going to jump back to you. Let me ask you one more, jumping back, which is you got into film middle school, high school, especially with this really cool program. But were you always writing too?
Yes, I was. I guess I wasn't really writing scripts. I was writing scripts in high school then, but my writing was very like all over the place. And for a while it was sort of I would say like unfocused, I guess. Because I would still write a lot of poetry, and I would sometimes try to write plays, and a lot of
poems, plays.
I was figuring
short
it out.
story, essay, whatever.
I was doing all that
stuff.
Just
barfing out words sometimes.
Yeah, and mostly it not going anywhere, or just posting it to Tumblr or something like that.
Posting it to Tumblr is more than a lot of people, right? A lot of people, it just stays in the notebook.
Well, a lot of people post it on Tumblr.
I guess you're right. I was going to say that it's interesting to me that growing up in the era of YouTube kind of makes self-production more appealing. Does it? Like there actually is somewhere, even if I'm just assuming a young person isn't thinking, well, my film is going to be if I shoot a 3-minute video with my friends and put it on YouTube, people will see it. They're not thinking it'll be one in 117 billion other videos. Yeah. But it is, but there's a place for it.
Yeah, there's a place for it. And I would say, I think definitely the hurdle of like, we'll just do it is a lot lower when there's camcorders around and there's YouTube where you can show your friends or whatever. I definitely I don't remember like the idea of going viral being at all on anyone's mind at that time. I mean, people were going viral obviously, but I feel like kids today are more like concerned with the sort of, they get more wrapped up in the popularity stuff with social media, and I think that's because the algorithms have changed. I think like YouTube back then felt like a place where you could really discover weird things, sometimes in a bad way, but often in an interesting way. And it was a little bit more of just a place where things could live, where it was less about like the algorithm pushing certain things. I'm sure I don't really understand how those algorithms work. So I'm maybe I'm speaking out of ignorance, but it seems like there was a shift where things got more monetized and it got less. It became a less interesting place for like creative work to exist.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think I'm no expert, but I'm going to pretend to be one by saying, I mean, YouTube originally was ad free, right? There was, I remember when everyone was like, Google's so dumb for buying YouTube for so much money because it doesn't make any money. Like YouTube is a drain.
Yeah.
And then they were the ones who realized we can advertise. So before ads were on there,
yeah, it was
there was no need for algorithms that force engagement. It was just the things that most people clicked like on moved to the top of your search, and it was probably way more organic and special. And then it became ad supported and profit driven, and it's about, we don't want to jump into the discussion of like angertainment, but needless to say, they discovered the stuff that keeps people on YouTube longer, is unpleasantness.
Yeah. And or it's just advertising that's pushing it to the top, or things that are not labeled as advertisements that are, getting, it's weird. But I at that time, like YouTube was just a place where we could put something where our friends could watch it. Basically, was you
didn't have to insist they come over to your home and check it out.
Yeah.
And then it must have been pretty exciting, right? If a complete stranger spotted it and commented or something, wouldn't that have been kind of cool?
I don't really remember it happening, but yeah, I guess that would have been cool. But I don't know. And maybe I'm not sure how the discoverability worked really in that. I don't know.
Yeah, me either. I did have that experience because I used to travel a lot and I would shoot a lot of travel video. And like I shared a basketball game I went to in Turkey, like a pro game in Istanbul. Yeah. And so I shared my experience, like, a little 2-minute video or whatever. And like it got watched a freaking lot.
Yeah.
And funny. People I'd never met before were like commenting, and I'm like, I guess it's because all the people of Istanbul just love that an American respected their league. But anyway, not about me.
Yeah.
All right. So, by the way, I've never asked your age, but I'm assuming when you were going to the LACMA stuff, that was like high school?
That was high school. Yeah, I'm 30, so that was
You're
that
30,
was
right? So in 07 you were
in 10th grade or something like that.
Yeah. Not quite driving, so you were but living in Culver City was a good spot, I guess. Yeah. You could get around.
I wasn't living in Culver City, but that's where I was commuting into school.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's right. People, that is something that's changed.
It's a permit kid, yeah.
I'm a native Angelino.
Yeah.
But in my era, like, you didn't get to choose high schools. You just went to the school that's closest to your house, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, I kind of, it's, maybe this is a little off topic, but we lived in Culver City when I was little, and so I got into the elementary schools, and my brother was going to the schools there, and then got priced out of Culver City, but then was able to stay and sneak in through. Gotcha. I don't know. It's a weird California.
I'm glad your parents were able to do that for you because, changing school districts, and it's nice to have the same group of friends all the way through.
Definitely. And and also, I mean, the thing about AVPA, the arts program that was really cool is that for the film people at least, was that you learn, like, you could learn how to work as a grip, and like you don't need to go to college or film school to work as a grip. Like, being a grip is a good working middle class job in this city. It doesn't really exist that many other cities, but like here it could be a trade. And it just like, there's people that I went to high school with that just like have been able to, continue working as like electricians or grips or, whatever different film set jobs because they learn the basics like in that program. So there's also, I mean, just, I don't know. It's interesting, the hypothetical of if I had gone somewhere else that I probably still would have been interested in movies, but I wonder if it would have seemed like making them was more unattainable or more abstract, I guess.
Has to be growing up in Los Angeles, particularly growing up in or around Culver City, where there is, the Sony lot is, I think it was born from the United Artists lot. So like there's like
MGM,
there's like those so there's like but I believe like you can say like Charlie Chaplin's offices, right? Like, I mean like it is for people like us who grew up here. It's different than growing up in Idaho and being like, whoever makes those films, I don't know who they are or how they do it.
Definitely. I definitely, like, you sometimes hear filmmakers say that they didn't know that was a job or something, but I definitely knew that it was a job. I mean, both my parents worked worked for people who were in the industry. So my dad was a gardener and my mom was a private chef. She worked in restaurants before, but when I was a kid, she was a private chef. So,
the people can afford private chefs are.
I've been to people's houses who are like, have produced. I guess I don't know if I should say anyone's names, but it's like people.
Well,
who
I don't think you're not calling them a bad person. You're just saying they when they had company over. Yeah, I had a friend who was a personal chef like that, and he always did Matt LeBlanc's Thanksgiving.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
And he was like Thanksgiving for 40. I'm like, I got to buy all these turkeys, and I'm like, of course. The guy on Friends isn't cooking his own turkeys, right? When he's having 40 people over. Yeah, so I don't think you're putting them down.
No. It's, so like when I was little, she was working for the Reitmans, like Ivan Reitman. And so I got to, I have strong memory of, they flew us to Hawaii because they were shooting 6 days, 7 nights, I think. I was very young. This is like one of my earliest memories, but I got to meet Harrison Ford there, which was, I guess I knew what Star Wars was, and I think I probably called him Han Solo, but it was like a very, I don't know, it was an interesting like experience. I also was like, there was some, I guess it was probably a hotel or something where everyone was staying, and the one other kid that was close to my age was the child of the two stunt performers, I think, or stunt coordinators or whatever, who were a couple. And he was like the craziest like kid. I mean, he was like doing stunts basically, as you would expect. He was tumbling, and I think he already had a broken arm when we were there.
Right, so your mom was like, oh, great, Renee's hanging out with the boy of the cast. I'm going to bring my son home with a cast. Yeah,
but there was something, I mean, I wasn't on set, didn't go on set or anything, but there was something like, who are all these people? Like, what's going on? I don't know, it was obviously a whole production.
Because of that also, you were, like you said, you were exposed that, wow, there's like 200-300 people working on this. Yeah. Like it's not just the multimillionaire star who's...
Yeah.
I mean, the king of franchises at the time, right? I mean,
right.
Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and the Jack Ryan stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, and whenever they needed the president, like they would, you be the president again. Yeah. I don't know, maybe just once.
Exactly. Yeah, at least once, yeah. But anyway, so, I definitely feel like just being in LA and being around, it was definitely... it's a very like real thing, and it's also less glamorized. Like it's just like it's a thing that people do for work as well, beyond the the stars or whatever. Well,
for sure, and I mean, I assume at your high school and whatnot, a lot of people's parents worked at the studio lot and stuff like, but like you said, like the trades people and all that. I mean, it's just there's a lot of middle class jobs.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's unionized.
Yeah.
And indeed. So people can actually afford things like healthcare and whatnot, even if they don't work year round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God for the unions.
It is a unique thing. It's a unique industry that it's so union dominated.
Yeah.
At that level.
Yeah, definitely. So where was I?
No, just so in that program, which I believe was you said it was like after school or in the summer or something?
It was after school, yeah.
So was there a specific part of film you were interested in? I mean, were you writing screenplays at that point and saying, hey, let's shoot mine? Or was there what was the process?
Yeah. So let's see. I definitely made a couple of short films. I joined kind of late. I did it only my last 2 years of high school. So at that point, we sort of did how did we do it? There were like different sort of classes that you could take. So we did like an experimental film one where we were doing more like abstract stuff, and then you would take a narrative film class where you would produce a short and help other people produce a little short. So I did make some movies in that, and then I also it also gave us access to equipment. So then I went out and shot other stuff as well. Mostly attempts at shorts that I didn't finish. There were a few of those, but it was just like a good training and helping other people. That was like Ben Mullen, who's the cinematographer on Donut, directed a movie, a short film in that program, and he was the first one who was like, "Oh, Rene, you're kind of organized and neurotic. Maybe you should be the AD." And so that was I didn't know what that job was before that, and then I learned how to do it, and I worked as an AD for a number of years until basically until the pandemic, just off and on, mostly on friends' productions and stuff. So it was it's just like learning that craft in particular, or that sort of trade of like how to do that specific job also was useful, because then I was, in the years that I was working as an AD, I would be working alongside directors and sort of see how they were doing things, and see how productions ran at different scales and stuff. So I think that that was also sort of another training ground for me. Yeah.
For sure, because not only, regardless of what kind of set it is, you're on sets and you're right next to where all the creative decisions are being made, which couldn't be made without what you're doing. The assistant director is, key.
And also I think to, in order to pull off something like Donut, it's like there's a lot of experience in knowing what you have to spend money on and what you don't, and what stuff is a waste of time. And I think just seeing it a lot is helpful. I'm not thinking of anything specific necessarily, but just like knowing sort of how to optimize the efficiency of a set is something that that experience definitely helped a lot.
Right. And that was high school, and then college comes along, I assume.
Yeah. So I basically didn't do any film stuff in college at all. I did some like cinema studies classes, excuse me, but I majored in modern Middle Eastern studies, so I just went a totally different
like poli-sci, like becoming a
it was. It was
history.
I was interested in it because it was interdisciplinary, so it had some history, sociology, and also like religious studies. I also took like a bunch of bioethics classes, and I was kind of like more interested in pursuing like a wide array of like humanities things. At this point, without the intent of like becoming a filmmaker necessarily, just sort of, I guess, out of interest. And
well, can I ask where you went?
I went to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia.
Right, you went to Penn.
Yeah,
I believe that's Ivy League, right?
It is.
What can I say?
Yeah,
congrats! Yeah. I'm giving you.
Okay.
As someone, whatever. There's a kid who's going to college, and a year from now we'll know where she's going. So congrats.
Thank you. Yeah.
And Middle Eastern studies, obviously, it sounds like there's always something going on, I believe. So, yeah.
It's,
but you chose it out of intellectual interest.
Yeah. I guess, I think I was especially interested in religious studies at first, and then the history was also interesting to me. I don't know. I liked being able to study a lot of different disciplines, and like narrowing it down into one sort of area of focus was was appealing. So that's why I went with that major. And then, and then after, I guess like on summer breaks, I would come back to LA and I would help people make movies and AD or whatever. Mostly not writing anything for myself at this point, I'm mostly writing poetry if I'm writing at all. So I'm mostly ADing, I guess, on summers when I'm back.
So you had a core group of friends back home who were still doing the film thing. Yeah. And so every summer they're like, oh, thank God Rene's coming back. He's the anal guy who's going to make sure that to cross the T's and dot the I's, because otherwise things become a mess fast.
The main person is Ben, because he went to USC and into the film school. So and and then
where they learn how to make the opposite of donut, I might add. Because I don't mean to be an asshole, but like I'm very rarely happy with the films that get submitted from SC. Yeah,
I think they're
great calling cards for big budget films, but there's very little artistry.
There's a lot of talented people. I think like the culture around the school and what people are encouraged to make is less interesting than the potential of the people. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree 1,000%. And in fact, even as I say that, I could name some films out of USC from wonderful young people who made amazingly wonderful films.
Yeah, I was just thinking of all of the people that I know who went to USC who, helped on Donut as well. And it's funny actually because that first summer that I came back, Ben was going to make a movie. It was a short film, but it was very ambitious. And it was with a friend from his, what do you call it? His dorm room, whatever. Hall. Thank you. Yeah. Aisle, whatever. And his friends, and they had been from the Valley. So, they were from the Valley, Woodland Hills-ish area. And so it was like, Ben was like, oh my God, I'm making this movie with these crazy people from the Valley. Like, Rene, please come help. And it was just a lot of fun. That was definitely a big learning experience because sort of none of us knew what we were doing. And it was at a much bigger sort of scale in terms of actors and stuff than any of us had experience with. And so it was kind of like calling in all of these like favors and friends from high school and whatnot, from Ben and I's high school, and also from their high school. And so it was sort of this, I don't know, it was a funny meeting of the world, and we're all like very good friends. The other person from Ben's Hall, his name is David Gantz, and he was the editor and the B camera operator on Donut. And well,
it's actually a wonderful time of life, like that era where everyone's young enough that if someone's making a movie, no one's working a 9 to an 8 to 7 p.m. job, on Wall Street where you can't take a break. Like everyone can be like, I'll help.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a wonderful time.
Yeah, and everything's free.
Everyone's like, just buy me some food.
Yeah, exactly.
Feed me.
Yeah. So then I was doing stuff like that, sort of on the summers, helping with, music videos or
just when you'd come home
projects.
From Penn.
Yeah. And so then when I graduated, then I moved back and I, started having jobs here and there, not in the film industry, but then I was basically taking AD jobs when I could, mostly still music videos, short films, stuff that would be on the weekends anyways, kind of thing. Which is great. I just met so many other filmmakers and people through that. And also, like I said before, learning sort of how sets run and which things which things are useful and which things are not. I'm
just going to ask a dumb, almost parental question. So all parental questions are dumb.
Yeah.
But like when you got that bachelor's, were you 100%, I'm just going to go back to LA and I'm going to get involved in film? Or were you thinking, my best friend of 45 years, his son actually went to college back east and actually focused on diplomacy. Like he actually I think he managed to get a job in the State Department. So I didn't know if you ever thought about like, maybe I should use this Middle Eastern thing and, maybe I can be the one who can make it all peaceful.
Yeah.
Or you just want to come home because in the end,
there were a few factors.
This is the best place in the world to live, in spite of what anybody says about Southern California. If you've grown up here, like winters are really fun for a minute.
Yeah,
and then you're like, maybe I shouldn't live where it snows.
Right.
Maybe no one should live where it snows.
Oh my gosh, yeah. When it's snowing and then you realize you didn't get your oil filled up, and then the house is just cold for 3 days when you wait. It's not fun. That doesn't happen here. Yeah, it's
no.
So there were a few factors. I was definitely not interested in working for the State Department or the CIA. Really, I mean, I just I guess those are the two choices when you do Middle East studies in a way. There's like consultants, but it's basically the same kind of thing. It's all, I guess when I was in school, I sort of like, because the problem with Penn as a university is it's very like career oriented. It's not very friendly to like a liberal arts education because the business school and the hospital have such a big influence. So it feels like everyone is getting a business degree and going into banking, or everyone is becoming a doctor. And so there's all this like, okay, but what are you going to do with that? And so there's a lot of weird sort of pressure around a lot of the humanities programs there. Anyways, I had studied abroad in Jordan and visited the West Bank and stuff, and I and also just learning a little bit of history. I felt like there was any good that could be done was not going to be done by the U.S. State Department. So
probably absolutely true.
So that was not really something I entertained by the time I was graduating. And the other thing that happened was that my mom had been fighting cancer for like 6 years since I was in high school, and passed away when I was a senior at the beginning of my senior year.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
So that was kind of, so I wanted to be back, I guess. And also my partner was moving back to LA, and we're both from here. So there was a bunch of factors. It was not, I remember when I came back, literally picking me up from the airport. My partner's dad picked me up from the airport, and we went to like IHOP, and he asked me, like, not in a mean way, more just like in a curious way, like, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, what's next?
Or like, what do you want to do, I guess, was more like, felt like a big question. And I was kind of like, well, I want to like help people make movies. Like I was sort of thinking like, oh, I can be an AD. Maybe I should be a producer. Like maybe that's the
AD leads to that. I believe
it's sort of,
it almost leads to more producing, I think, than directing.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's So it seemed logical, I guess. Yeah. Looking back on it, I feel like that response mostly had to do with sort of a insecurity about my own ability to like be a creative, or sort of a self-doubt about.
You don't want to say to your partner's dad, "Hey, no, I'm maybe I'll be the next Spielberg." That kind of bullshit. You don't have the ego for that. I can already tell. But
and also I just wasn't sure if I had anything to say or something like that. I felt sort of ambivalent about my voice, I guess.
And it sounds like you set the bar a little high.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? Like you know, like that's. But go on. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's sort of where my head was at. I didn't do the thing of trying to get a job at a production company or something like that. I ended up working at like a museum that I had worked at before, and then some. I dabbled in some different things, but mostly I was working at this like lighting and furniture company where I was like managing production basically. And I don't know. So it was kind of nice to have a day job, but it is interesting. Like I realize more that people who want to be producers, like get jobs at production companies. Like I actually found that like working as an AD, I sort of had the idea that I would have a job and then I would eventually be able to just work as an AD. And I tried to do that. I like worked and then I quit my job because I thought maybe I could get enough work as an AD. And then I spent about a year trying to do that. And it was very difficult to string together enough jobs. And looking back on it, I'm like, oh, the way, if anyone listening wants to become an AD, the way to do it is to have some experience doing it on small sets and then to try to get in touch with somebody who's working in the industry as an AD and become a key set PA and then a second AD. And then, if you want to make a career out of it, that's how you would actually do it.
And then all you really need is 2 or 3 people are like, I love that AD.
Yeah.
And then once 2 or 3 directors say that AD will always be on my sets, then you kind of get to work a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And
you need more than one person to like you though.
Yeah, exactly. As it was, this is just set politics can also be weird. This is one of the other things that I learned and applied to my own filmmaking is like, there's a whole weird thing of like, you're supporting the director, but you're actually working for the producer. And it's like if you support the director too much, then the producer is not going to ever hire you again. Even if it's in a non-damaging way, it's just like, you're supposed to be sucking up to them. And it's just
maybe you're not a fan of sucking up. I don't know,
I guess.
But it is.
Not really.
It is.
That's maybe been a problem.
There is always politics. Yeah, the departments.
Yeah, it's just a weird. I mean, it's fine. I think I didn't have that many negative experiences on sets, but also I think there's a level of self-importance that comes from ignorance and like the types of music videos and commercials and just like low budget stuff that I was mostly working on. Like people mostly didn't know what they were doing really. And so, then people get on their high horse about certain things, because it's just like, and that probably applies to me. I'm sure I am also capable of getting on my own high horse. And I feel like it's, anyways, it was felt.
But it sounds like it just wasn't an awesome fit for you.
Yeah,
because you could have done it and said, "This is for me," and like I can deal with the politics, and I'm going to forge forward. But it sounds like you were a little turned off.
Definitely, and it was a weird combination of like not getting quite enough work, but feeling burnt out by it as well. Which is like I really should be working.
I haven't worked for a month, but I'm really sick of working. I feel you. Exactly. I totally understand.
So then I did the obvious move of going to grad school. So that was fun. I did a master's in culture and colonialism at the University of Galway in Ireland, which is like a year-long program.
Damn.
Which was really interesting.
By the way, I've been to Galway.
Oh, yeah?
But
it's great. It's a great town.
It's a beautiful place.
Good film festival, too, although I didn't get to go to it. But
So you decided to apply for grad school. Did you, or was this program in Galway something that appealed to you?
I was kind of like, oh, well, okay, I guess I'm skipping things, but I did make a short film in that time, my sort of first more professional short film. and I had the experience of like submitting it to festivals, but of course only submitting it to like, the ones that I'd heard of. And then
everybody does,
getting rejected and being like, oh, okay, I guess that's it. And just like, I probably applied to 10 or 12 and then gave up, which is not how you should do it. Well, we can talk about that more. But so I was sort of like, it wasn't something that had lost all appeal to me, but I was sort of like, maybe I should put this on the back burner and just like try something else. So, the master's program, I had applied for like a grant that would have made it basically free, which I didn't end up getting. It was still cheaper than going to grad school here, and it was only a year program. So I was kind of like, okay, I'll take out another student loan and just do it. And that was great, but that was 2019. And so then in March 2020, I was...
So you finished that in the summer of 2019.
I finished it in 2020.
Oh,
so
really?
I finished remotely. Yeah.
Oh, you finished remotely.
Yeah. So I came back here and wrote my thesis remotely. Classes were basically done by then. But so that was kind of the weird end of that.
And that was an MA in...
It was like an English MA in culture and colonialism. So it was about... I found it very interesting. It was kind of... about the way colonialism and sort of like the global politics of that have influenced culture and the way culture relates to the institutions of colonialism as well. So it was about all of the, there was a lot of stuff about sort of third cinema and which was very interesting to me. And then I ended up writing my thesis about like queer identity and performance about this person, Michal McLeomore, who had run a very important theater in Dublin called the Gate Theater, and which is where Orson Welles got his start, as it turns out. But this guy he was English originally, and he moved to Ireland and basically adopted an Irish name and pretended to be Irish. And he and his partner, who had founded the theater together, were like the most. This is like from the 1920s to the late 1960s, they were the most prominent openly gay couple in Ireland, where sodomy was
Catholic country.
Yeah, it was. It was
time.
Totally illegal. Yeah,
still a Catholic country, but somehow
much less
some more liberal laws than ours.
Yeah, it's So this was a very interesting person because like as laws became more progressive in England sooner, but he was able to sort of find some sort of freedom in this performance of like this colonized identity. I don't know. It's sort of a strange figure. And then also because he was a performer, there was a lot of like textual stuff to work off of because he had written a play about Oscar Wilde, which is sort of one of the prominent reclamations of Oscar Wilde as an Irish writer, because for decades, he had been sort of rejected because of the controversy of his homosexuality and the trial and all that stuff. Although his play sort of sublimates the homosexuality in favor of like, what do you call it? Like rejoicing him as an Irishman, which is kind of an interesting sort of conundrum.
Interesting. I wonder if that was almost for commercial reasons or...
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it was very successful. So it's it was a strange. I mean, yeah, it's the. I mean, look, 60s is weird.
No, I mean, if it's I was going to say like I mean, it's
the politics of that.
The history of the gay community being able to be public. It's so recent. I mean, it's so recent that, and obviously, there's still not acceptance around the world and in all cultures, including ours, you know. So it is wild to think that was to have focused on Oscar Wilde's sexuality might have doomed the play in the 60s.
Well, I think some of the critics were saying things like that. Especially there was in one of his memoirs he writes about a critic in South Africa bringing it up and basically saying that, you know, the line about it being unnatural or, you know, some homophobic thing like that. And then he sort of like goes on this whole diatribe in the book, or, you know, a couple sentences about how it's like it is natural and it's normal or whatever, which is interesting because he's not explicitly out. You know what I mean? So it's he's writing and publishing this book, but he's not like announcing that he's gay or something. It's I don't know. It's interesting. There's a way in which like his sort of performance of self as a famous actor, as somebody that would go out in a, you know, toupee and like full face of makeup on the streets of Dublin, and people would, you know, in the I guess like the 30s and 40s, like a very conservative time in Ireland, people would just be like, oh, that's Micheál. Like it wasn't like, oh, there's a gay person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
There's a theater person, there's a character.
Yeah, and even if underneath people like sort of know, it's like an open secret in some ways. It's like because there's less of a identity around it. It's there's a little bit more wiggle room in some ways, which is sort of an interesting kind of conundrum, I guess. But anyway, so that's what I wrote my thesis on. It was very interesting. It's not really. It was very interesting to me, not really directly related to film, except that I felt like it would, you know, enrich me and make me know things and expose me to things. So then I came back, and at the end of the pandemic, I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic, I came back to LA and wrote my thesis, and then I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do now? I was sort of starting to look for work, and my friend texted me like, do you want to work on this PTA movie? And so I became a construction assistant on what became Licorice Pizza. And through that, I was like working for the construction department. And then the next year I got into the union, the laborers union. So since then I've been working as a union laborer on film sets and stuff, except for when there's extended strike stoppages. But so that's sort of that was what was paying the bills basically when I made Donut. And yeah, there was almost going to be an IATSE strike in 2021, and they made a deal at the last minute, but I had already planned to take a few weeks off to make Donut in that time. So that was like that Christmas was when we made Donut.
So when did you write Donut?
So
and what inspired you to write it, I guess, is what I should ask.
Yeah. Well, a few things. So before I went back to school in 2019, that summer, I tried to, I was going to try to make another movie, and I couldn't quite figure out how to make it work. I was trying to cast a couple. It was sort of similar characters as Donut, but it was more, it's in their early conception, it was similar characters to Donut. And I was trying to cast people who were actually a couple, and then they kept breaking up. And so this happened with one couple twice and another couple once. It was just like a whole thing. But and it was not well planned, really. I mean, I realized that I was keeping things I was going with the flow a little bit too much, maybe, or something. So. But for that project, I had a script, like a traditional sort of script written, and I also had a short film that I had written longer time ago that was set in a donut shop that was more like about a family that like ran the donut shop, and so I kind of took those two ideas, or I took some of the dynamics from the donut shop and the setting, obviously, and I took these characters from this other movie, which originally those characters were based on my parents. It was sort of like a imagined fiction of like my parents as teenagers, basically. And so I sort of stuck those two things together, and I had like a treatment, basically, like a sort of outline of what would happen. And I started looking for actors, and I went and got coffee with Pavli, because Pavli is an incredible filmmaker who I had worked with. I guess at that time I'd worked with them just once on a music video. I knew them through Ben. Ben had shot their feature Firstness, which is an amazing movie. I believe it's on Canopy. If anyone wants to watch it, the best streaming service, get it through your library. Yes, Pavli made that movie. Pavli directs under the name Brielle Brilliant. But so I was getting coffee with Pavli, and I was telling them about this idea, basically explaining the idea of the donut and the symbolism of the hole, that kind of thing.
Almost the scene with the owner?
Basically, yeah. So we were talking about that, and they got really excited. They were like, let me help you cast this. This is going to be so fun. And so then we met up again, and because they're like the kind of person that knows like all sorts of people. A lot of like non-professional actors, but just like interesting people to fill up a movie. So they brought back a bunch of names, and we talked about them. And then they had been working on this project with Sua, their friend, and a poet and artist in their own right. And but I didn't really know Sua at the time, and they were like, "Oh, well, maybe Sua would do this role, but I don't know if they would do it without me, because they're not like as comfortable like in front of the camera or something." So then I was kind of like, this seems perfect. Because
when they said without me it won't work, and you were like, I want you.
Oh, yeah.
I want you in this.
It's because I really wanted people. I definitely didn't want people who were in a relationship, because the story had moved away from it being directly about a relationship in this iteration. So, but I wanted people who knew each other. I guess I did want people who had a relationship, but not like in a romantic relationship, I guess what I mean to say. And so then we met, the three of us, and we were like, let's do it. And then we basically worked on developing each of their characters. So they both had a big hand in like constructing their characters and bringing those things to life. And then we sort of went through a shortened version of like a Mike Lee style film.
I was going to mention,
yeah,
because I think that came up during your Q&A too.
Yeah. Which just like an abridged version is basically like we have a premise for a scene, we have characters that are already created, and then we do an improv and sort of like try to see where the scene goes. Mike Lee does that for like 6 months and writes the whole movie that way, but we had a very compressed timeline. So we found the pacing of the scenes, and together we sort of like had this like story arc basically. And then rather than the Mike Lee thing of like writing down and then when you're shooting you have a fixed script, we were improvising the whole time. So we would rehearse a few times, and then on the day we shot a couple versions of improvisation basically. But it wasn't like freewheeling improvisation exactly. It was like sort of, we knew the shape of the scene kind of.
And had you seen both of them on screen before this? In Pavli's work, or?
No.
Because one of the things that stands out for me is their on-screen brilliance. I don't know what to call it, actually. There's like an annoying old Hollywood term I heard a long time ago, like Tony Curtis. When he's on screen, he delivers the groceries. Like
yes.
They just belong. Like
it's like
for some reason
presence.
We can't explain it, but this person kind of belongs on screen.
Yeah.
And both of your leads belong on screen. And I don't know if that was instinctual or if you got lucky.
I think both. A little bit of both. I mean, there was something.
And when Pavley's character shows up, it's just like,
yeah,
it is like an explosion on screen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so clear.
I definitely felt like, because the Seb character, as I had it written, is fairly passive, and so I definitely knew that I needed somebody who was going to be pretty high energy for the Misha character, and Pavley's unlike their character in a lot of ways, but is definitely like sort of energetic in that way, And so Ben and I were, because I was also getting Ben involved to sort of like start thinking about this, and as a sort of like co-producer, and Ben was like, I think that like it'll work if you have Pavley there to like fill up the scene, and then but I don't know if I think Sua had been on camera before because they were in this film project that they were doing with Pavley, which I don't think has been released yet. But I don't think Pavley had been on camera before. But Pavley also is a dancer and like is a performer in different ways. So I was confident that something would happen that would be interesting, but it definitely was more. It was more than I expected. The actual like performances that came out were, I guess, a lot deeper than I would have could have even hoped for. Yeah. What was I gonna say? I don't know.
I know what you're gonna say, but but I'd add like Sua. Some people just when they're on screen, we instantly identify with and root for that character.
Yeah.
And the situation they're in that donut shop.
Yeah.
I think it's almost from the first frame is as an audience member, you identify with Seb and you're rooting for Seb from the get-go. And amazingly, if you cast someone else, that just might be missing.
That is exactly what I was wanting to say is like I thought I knew that Pavley was going to be able to pull off something a little bit crazy, and then that could be interesting to watch. But the Seb character was so. I mean, the whole project was underwritten. Like that sort of was.
But you had the idea to improv and to let it grow.
But I think I feel like if you write something out into a script, then it's easier to see where problems are. And I think if this had been written into a script at that point, I would have maybe noticed that the Seb character was very underwritten and was like passive in a way that was maybe not going to work. And this was actually something that, like, collaborating with the actors on creating their characters gave both of them a lot more depth and interesting dynamics. And I think what Sua did with Seb is like, I find it very moving. I mean, it's just like elevated it to a whole nother level of humanity, I guess, compared to sort of the possibility of it being sort of a flat, like, point of view character that's just sort of there. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think, I was also astounded.
Your instincts, the storytelling instincts, I mean, it is actually quite, there's a long tradition of that central character being a bit of a counterpuncher, being like almost the sane person surrounded by insanity.
Yes. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's the Clerks thing. I mean, I think that like comparison is one that comes up a lot when people watch the movie. I think like especially with a one location kind of movie, like having somebody that the whirlwind is going around is kind of a common setup. And I think that Donut would have worked somewhat with like a a more blank character that I had sort of like originally imagined. But I think it becomes something much more interesting when there's like more of a push and pull between those two characters. You know what I mean? Where there's some actual life in the center of the movie, and it's because I mean, I don't know. There's just some like level of pathos that is I find really outstanding in their performance.
Absolutely. There's something in that face that although also it's partially, I think, the artwork. Because you have them. Yeah.
Well, they're an incredible illustrator. And
that live illustration, that might be another reason we get pulled in.
There's it's a great like window into their mind, as like a little silent window.
Well, because a great mind doing a boring job.
Yes.
Seeks that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
By the way, I am resisting going on and on about how much better Donut is than Clerks. So go on.
It's.
I understand the comparison, but actually, it really.
Well, I think
it's kind of
in the formal sense. I think there's like. I mean, it's also just a stereotype of the first feature being a one location semi-comedic drama thing. It's like, it's cheap. That's why people do it. It's
but Clerks is just a series of one-liners with almost no story.
Okay,
and it's, you know what? I said I was going to resist.
Resist.
It is of its time.
Yeah,
and it was special for its time. But
I think
I think you had
I'm not even
greater
the
ambitions.
biggest Clerks fan necessarily. I mean, I've seen the movie once and I enjoyed it, but it is kind of a groundbreaking movie for independent cinema in this country in some ways. I mean, just even by the time I was growing up, it was sort of the idea that you could just go and make a feature film in one location was like normal. Like that was like a normal idea. Not that it would be easy, but like you could do that. And I feel like you couldn't do that in the 80s, as you know what I mean?
True. And films like She's Gotta Have It and other things that came before. No one did the one location thing. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like there's the Spike Lee, Jim Jarmusch, those kind of filmmakers did do a similar thing, but they feel more professional, maybe
they're
because
more cinematic. They were well educated.
Maybe it's because those are better movies.
Masters. They got masters at NYU.
Exactly.
Whereas,
that's what I was. Yeah, it's less DIY. I feel like in a way that maybe makes those movies better or more sophisticated or more interesting.
Or equally DIY, but they were making cinema, and Kevin just wrote a bunch of jokes. He's like, "Can't I just write a bunch of jokes? I really want to talk about the Death Star." And we'd all been having these conversations. It was wonderful. It was lovely for what it was.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you name Jarmusch, I'm like, oh, that's my jam right there.
No, me too. Yeah. That's.
All right. So you. I don't know. Should we just jump? So you've made it, or it was a good experience making it, I believe, right?
It was, yeah. It was. I mean, it was stressful, but it was great. We did it. I mean, there was just like the week before we were doing rehearsals, and then we were trying to figure out how we were going to shoot it for the amount of money that we had. And Ben had the idea sort of at the last minute, like I had reserved. It was like weeks and weeks of driving around trying to find a donut shop that would let me shoot there for almost no money. And the problem with getting locations in LA is that everyone has had real movies and TV shows there. And the donut shop that I went to, it had CSI at the restaurant next door, or maybe just in the parking lot or something like that, like a few months before. And so all the businesses were like, "Oh, where's our paycheck?" I'm like, "This is not CSI." I don't know, kid. I tried to, we got food from the Thai place, and I gave some money to some of the other shops, but it was, it was very.
But you also didn't disturb the environment like CSI probably did. CSI probably shut them all down.
They shut it all down. Yeah. So Yeah, and they were all closed by the time we were shooting mostly. But what was I going to say? So we had it for 5 days for that whole week, basically in the afternoons and evenings. And then Ben was like, okay, what if we get a second camera and only shoot 3 of those days and do 2 days of rehearsal on location, which is like very scary to me to go down to 3 days. But it was a brilliant idea because then we were shooting coverage of every scene with 2 cameras. And so we did it in like basically 3 10-hour days. So
3 10-hour nights.
3 10-hour nights.
You would start after sundown.
No, we would do like it was, I guess, what was it, 3 to 1 a.m. or something like that. Is that
so you
10
block
hours?
out the windows and.
No, we would be setting up and rehearsing, and then it was winter, so it got dark at like 5 or something.
Oh, gotcha.
And that's about it. Yeah, I mean, we did barely anything to the space. I mean, it was just like that was what the donut shop looked like, except for the
3
art
days,
on the wall.
So you had the whole freaking thing planned out, obviously, though, in spite of the looseness of the improv and stuff.
I had the scenes set.
You had the scenes. Yeah. You obviously knew you were using your dad as the local troubadour.
Yeah.
And things.
I had my brother's band and stuff.
My understanding is that you didn't like do an edit and then go shoot more.
No.
To fill in holes. So you got an impressive amount of work done in those 3 days.
Yeah, we did. It's
because it holds together as a feature, which is, the not many features survive without pickups. I'll just say that.
I the way I structured it, we got most of the narrative pieces on the first 2 days.
So the AD and you really made it work.
Yes,
didn't it?
yeah, definitely. The AD was putting it overtime. Yeah, we got most of the narrative piece of the first 2 days, and then we had the third day to sort of fill in gaps. And the third day, we also filmed the guy there making the donuts, and that was sort of like the donut making
sort of
sequence.
That's
like
your B-roll.
It ends up being sort of the opening sequence.
I'm getting hungry thinking about it.
Yeah, and then so then we did add some stuff there that we hadn't been planning, but otherwise all of the scenes for my like sort of story arc were done basically in those first 2 days, and all of the extras and any other actors were all done in those 2 days. I would say like the structure that I had in mind didn't totally work, and so there was a lot of fiddling with it in the edit to make it sort of flow. I mean, there's just like the way it ends is sort of different than what I had originally planned, but I think it works a lot better now.
So it was but that's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to discover a completely new film in that edit.
But I just mean I did think about about doing pickups if I needed them, but I couldn't. And also because the cut ended up being about an hour long, I was kind of thinking like, do I need without a script, it's hard to know exactly how long something's going to be. So I was kind of like, do I need to pad this out somehow? Is there something that I can add that will make it feel more like a feature or something, in quotes, just because I wasn't sure if festivals would want to program an hour feature, or if that would be a help or a hindrance, or if anyone would want to watch it. Or, I mean, I still don't know if anyone wants to watch it, but
I mean, it is an unusual length in a way.
Yeah.
It's sort of it's maybe an orphan length for now.
Yeah,
like our festival tries to do something about it, but my question on that is, was that just the first best cut was around an hour, or were you longer? And then when you got it into a shape that you were happy with, it was an hour?
Let's see. I guess the first cut that David did was shorter. And I went in and added some more time spent in sort of the ambience of the donut shop, because I wanted. I would say that his cut was more maybe paced for the comedy bits of it, and there are sequences that are exactly like as he did it the first time because they were like, I mean, he's really good, so it worked. But then I wanted to sort of like stretch out some of the sort of spooky vibes, and I also so I think so my second, I guess maybe second or third cut, the one that I sort of did ended up being around an hour, and then he did sort of a last like sort of pass tweaking and stuff, and it got a little bit shorter again, and it was like, you know, at the length that it is now basically, which is like 62 minutes or something like that. And then I was I didn't feel like it was missing anything, so I decided not to shoot anything else. So
bravo. I mean, I'm sure some people would have been, you've probably had idiots say this before, but like you could have just, all right, I'll just have my dad do like 3 more 3-minute songs, and then I get over 70 minutes and I can rest easy. Yeah. But it would have, it wouldn't have been as good. It would have, like the impact of the songs, the two, right? There's two. The 2 songs have an impact because you're not turning to them to kill time. Yeah.
I do think that that's maybe one of the more, with the people that I showed the film to, that was one of the more controversial things of like, we're not going to look at anything else while this song is playing. And like,
you're not going to cut to donuts.
Exactly.
Is that what they wanted?
Basically, I mean, I think it is unusual to watch a performance, like for the full length, basically without anything else. I think it's,
yeah, but that should be the point of an indie film, is to do things a little more creatively.
Yeah,
right.
I think it's not even just to me. There's 2 things about it. Like, I think the lyrics to that song felt like they were speaking to the themes of the movie, and so I wanted people to have the space to like hear them. And I also wanted it to be a moment of like introspection for Seb, where you're basically the lyrics of the song are sort of like happening in the mind of this character. And I feel like that's one of those moments where like you're just looking into Seb's eyes, and there's like a real very like powerful, quiet performance that's happening there that I didn't want to undercut with activity, basically. And I think I was also kind of like, you know, people are like, oh, it's a little bit boring to listen to like 3 or 4 minutes of music without something else happening. And I'm like, it's only an hour long. I'm not making you sit through 3 hours and then like just watching somebody sing a song. I don't know. I don't know if it makes it, I don't know. It's weird. I also feel like, I mean, I understand.
But you liked it. The point is, you like it.
The point is, I thought it was cool, and I thought it worked for this story.
Goofballs like myself, who maybe I'm biased because I watch so many films, but when someone does something that you don't normally see, and it works, doesn't always work, it's just that much more refreshing. Yeah, you know, maybe it wouldn't have worked if the song wasn't good enough, or honestly, the cinematography is so good in its own way that and I actually. I'm a big fan of it because I don't want to talk too much about it, but I've been involved in films about music and film and maybe even music video. And like, there's nothing more unpleasant for me as someone who is just a really huge music nerd than how fake most music is on screen. Yeah. And the fact that it's a live performance and the audio is recorded live, you didn't go back and redub shit. Yeah. The fact that it's a live performance, I think, is why it's so engaging for me.
And yeah, you can feel it. And also like the donut shop it has real acoustics. Like, it's not dead. It's so far from being a dead room that I mean, you're listening to it on a directional mic, so it's not like echoing everywhere, but you feel the space and throughout I was with the sound. I really wanted sound to be a big part of the movie, like the textures of everything in that shop. And so it sounds like a donut shop, including that. And you hear the fridges go on, like
all that stuff that's against the normal rules.
Yeah, that stuff is happening. And it also helped because we were shooting with 2 cameras. Like there were continuity things were less of a concern because we could mostly piece things together in an edit that would make sense. But
yeah, and you were never totally without a paddle.
Yeah,
thanks to that second camera.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
So yeah, it was a great shoot. I was very stressed about it, but of course. But afterwards, everyone, like every few months, I talked to somebody that worked on it, and they were like, "That was great. That was so fun. When are we going to do it again?"
All the free donuts. No, and then all right. So then you finish it, and you're happy with that cut.
Yeah.
And my notes say world premiere.
Yeah.
At Film Invasion LA. Who knew?
Yeah. Ever heard of it? Yeah.
Film Invasion Los Angeles. World premiere.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, I understand world premieres at festivals. It's just when you finished and it's not like you saved it for Film Invasion LA, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. It was nice to have it here at home. My whole family came. Most of
Your family came, and we happened to be in a big, beautiful, state-of-the-art theater, which that's always nice.
Yeah. The sound of those donuts just being made, blaring on that was great.
Was it too loud, or was it was okay?
No, it was, it was mixed loud. I thought it was really interesting because I also did the score for the movie, and I felt like, I wanted to use the textures of especially of the donuts being made, but also like all of the sounds that we'd recorded of like, hands on paper and all of this kind of stuff, tongs grabbing donuts, whatnot, as the sort of bed for the sonic bed for the movie as well. So the opening sequence is, you see the donuts being made and the machines are making sound, and then those sounds start being looped, and there's like this musical cacophony that emerges from that cacophony that's happening on the screen that is supposed to be sort of industrial and like kind of intense. And so just like having it on a big sound system was like, wow.
It's a great, wonderful.
It was very exciting for me.
Yeah. We got lucky. We got lucky because that theater pursued us.
Yeah, nice.
You would have fit in just fine at our previous venue.
The Lemley where they're playing Marvel movies?
No, our previous venue is the White Fire Theater in Sherman Oaks, which is a small little 90-seat playhouse that has a 20-foot screen for digital projection, but not good sound, but not Look Cinemas where we're at now. Yeah. But excellent. I was actually going to ask you one more question about Donut because Demorge Brown.
Yes. Incredible. He's the best.
Incredible find, right? Well, first of all, that scene is amazing, but I've seen him quite a bit, right?
Yeah, he's around. And
so how did you get a hold of? Because that's such a special scene for me when and just the way he treats his employee, I think, is actually again super unique. You would never expect that. It's like who finds someone asleep on the job and is supportive.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah. I think so both that character and Shell, the other Seb's friend who comes in, who's played by Simone Niamani, they were both from that original list that Pavli had made to cast. And they were I looked through the options and they were my first choices and they both said yes. And so that was very exciting to me. And then I'm trying to think, I think most of the other people, just to go back to casting real quick, most of the other people are friends and family and not actors. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anyone, but so those are sort of the main four that were cast. Demorge, I feel like I'd seen him in shorts and stuff before, but I didn't have a name to go with the face. And I looked up some of his stuff, and I saw I listened to some podcast of him talking about his experience with ghosts, and I was like, this is going in the movie. So that's him like telling a real story about his like experience with ghosts, which is fun. And he was just like so down to play. I mean, it was he wasn't able to make it for rehearsals, so we didn't do the like sort of improvisational thing for that scene. That was like the most written part. I had his like sort of or their conversation written out, and he ended up playing with it. And in the edit, we also move things around a little bit. But basically, it's like it's similar to like as written, and he just like is having so much fun with it and eating that donut. And I just think like. I guess I feel like the way Donut turned out, it is kind of comedic, but in my original conception of it, it wasn't like central to the idea that it would be a comedy or something like that. But I definitely wanted to cast like him as a comedic performer, because I feel like comedians just bring a whole nother level of interest and life to scenes often, to drama performances. I mean, but then also, he's just doing, also it's just a funny sort of speech that he's giving about donut holes. And it's like kind of weirdly sexual, but not creepy, but it's just kind of weird.
I guess it's so funny because I guess as a completely amateurish philosophy nerd, to me, it's just philosophical and fascinating.
Totally, yeah.
I just get roped in.
Yeah, I love that.
And I don't see it as comic relief. Maybe I admire his ability to eat that donut without getting too much in the mustache.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
But besides noticing that there's actually, it just manages to always be visually stunning and piques the intellectual curiosity.
Yeah. And it's also, it's funny because he's supposed to be like a regular customer. Originally, that was the idea, but almost everyone thinks that he's the boss. So I'm like,
so he's just a customer, really? I'm wrong thinking he's the boss?
Yeah, I think that. Well, I don't know.
Because why would the boss show up in the middle of the night like that?
The idea is that
I guess that's ageism.
Seb's mom is like the person that owns and runs the donut shop, so it's like a family shop. But their mom is not doing well; is like sick, basically. And then Mort, the Demorge's character, is sort of like a customer that comes in the early morning before he goes to work and is like always flirting with the mom, and so he's kind of like this sort of stand-in parental figure, sort of. But I kind of I don't mind that people think that he's the boss either. That's kind of funny as well.
It actually really checks out that it'd be a family business too, because it's one of the few. Well, in Los Angeles, I don't know. I realize Dunkin' and Winchell's kind of dominate the world.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of independent little donut shops around, donut/sandwich shops, just like that one.
Definitely. Yeah, including that one is owned by a Cambodian American family. This it's one of the last standing family businesses, I feel like. And it's such a vibrant, like, it's such an LA. We talked about this at the Q&A as well, I think, but I feel like donuts are such a like important LA thing. When I was like living back east, it was always like, oh, I can't wait to have a donut back. They have donuts other places. Dunkin' Donuts is like the worst thing in the world.
They're not good donuts.
It's bad, and everything's bad about Dunkin' Donuts, basically.
Everything.
In my opinion.
I agree.
If you're in Boston, it's okay. You can have it, but if you're in Los Angeles, don't eat at Dunkin' Donuts. Go down the street to the local donut shop.
They're not good donuts.
They're not good. Yeah.
Their holes aren't too bad. The donut holes at Dunkin' are a little better.
You got less room for error.
But so this is fascinating. Not that we're supposed to talk about donut shops the whole time. So wait.
I would love to talk about donut shops.
I went to college in California, so I didn't have the guts to leave. But like in Pennsylvania, like you don't have indie donut shops around?
No, there are some, but
Because like,
there's
if
not
you go
the
to
same.
high school in Los Angeles, you are in a donut shop almost every weekend. At some point, you're up, you don't want to go home. And because you're young and you have an amazing metabolism, there's no reason not to eat donuts every night.
So, exactly. I couldn't agree more. Even when you don't have a good metabolism.
I guess.
When I was there, there was Dunkin' Donuts was everywhere. So I don't know if before Dunkin' Donuts there was more of a foothold, but my understanding is that it's really a California thing because Dunkin' tried to come to California in the 90s and just failed. I mean, they just like couldn't expand because the local donut shops were too powerful. And now they're doing a slower rollout in the last few years that's, I guess, a little more successful, which is a bummer. But there's also a generational thing where like the kids of the families that had the donut shops maybe don't want to do that anymore. So there's a little bit of a shift happening, but there's still a strong like local donut culture here that I feel like in Philly, there was like a donut shop that opened that was more of one of those like fancy donut shops that we now have here too. Like, you know, where it's like $7 for a donut or whatever, which is like, you know, they're sometimes good, but it's not the same thing as like, you know, an LA donut shop. Which I also, since we're here in the Valley, I should shout out. So we shot at Tiffany's, which is on Ventura and what is that street? It's in Woodland Hills.
Yeah, it's way Ventura. Out west. Yeah, it's like,
is it Fallbrook? Maybe is that
could be Fallbrook?
Okay, it might be Fallbrook. That checks out.
Ventura. No, believe me, we're watching your film. Yeah, going, we got to go to this donut shop.
But But I found that donut shop because I went to Blinky's. Do you know Blinky's? It's on Topanga, just down from Ventura. What's the cross street? Whatever. It's down there, which is down the street from. My dad moved to that sort of area when I was in high school, so I lived down the street from Blinky's for a little while, and so I would go there all the time. And on the second, it was like the last day where I was like, I can't do this anymore. If I don't find a donut shop today, I'm not gonna do it. And I went to Blinky's, and the lady there was very nice. Blinky's is a much like more famous donut shop, so they were like, we get paid a lot of money for people to shoot here, so we can't do it. but I know someone who's down the street. Maybe go ask her. And so I went down to Tiffany's and we were able to work something out. So shout out to both those donut shops. Blinky's is great, and also Tiffany's, very good.
Next time I'm out on Topanga, I might have to check it out.
And if you want donut recommendations, hit me up on Instagram and I will give you a list.
Oh, you can start a whole donut thing. I'm forgetting.
That's my passion. Yeah.
You know, we have
filmmaking is okay, but donuts
here in Sherman Oaks we have an indie one. I believe it's Nathan's.
Oh yeah,
Nathan's, but it's just right behind In-N-Out.
Yeah. I haven't been. I've heard good things about that one, but
it's good. But yeah, sometimes I got to get me an apple fritter.
Yeah,
I'm also a cruller person. I love a cruller. Yeah, I assume it's cruller, not cruller. I don't know.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
So I've mentioned crullers to people, and they're like, "What's that?" I'm like, "That amazing, better, super soft inside donut. Come on."
Yeah. One of the people in the movie orders I think she pronounces it cruller in the movie, but I don't know if she's right.
Does.
Yeah. Her name is Alyssa.
I don't even know who's right.
Yeah.
and I don't think there's a wrong answer as long as you eat it.
Yeah.
Oh, especially the chocolate or maple. But anyway.
Oh, my God. See, now you're making
wow, this could lead to an improv run over to Nathan's Donuts. But anyhow.
Yeah.
So after your premiere, any other festivals? Did you?
No,
really?
I submitted to a few more, but yeah, no, I don't know. It's I don't know if
it was the length, and I bet it was
so there's some festivals where it wasn't long enough to fit in the features category. Like not a lot, but there are a few festivals that have a big space between 20 minutes and like an hour and 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, like features should be, 75 plus,
Right.
75 down is a short.
Or they say that the cutoff is an hour, and then I'm like, okay, I'm submitting a 62-minute thing. So is the cutoff really an hour, or are they going to be like, this is too short? I'm not sure. There's all sorts of, as you say in your speeches at the festival, there's all sorts of reasons why movies don't get into festivals or whatever. So who knows? I imagine that programming blocks is a complicated logistical thing that having things that are weird lengths would just be maybe a little bit harder. But also it's kind of a weird movie. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this to you.
Yeah.
Which is, Film Invasion Los Angeles and Sherman Oaks Film Festival, the two that I run, we're a nonprofit. I realize that using a 2-hour slot for a 1-hour movie isn't good commerce. Mm. But also starting your film at 10:30 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. would have been kind of like, oh, we want to keep everyone here till midnight.
Yeah.
I guess I'm confessing that we just try really hard to just be about the art, and we understand that we lose money on every screening.
Right.
We know we're not going to sell enough tickets to pay for that theater.
Well, I have a big family, so we.
You did a nice job. In fact, amusingly, I am 90% sure. I shouldn't say this, but your film and another film, I think both sold the most tickets, but the other film sold more than yours. But then the theater is more full for yours than the other one, which means people bought tickets to the other one and didn't come. People showed up last minute for you, I bet, and either bought at the door or walked in. I always tell people, look, we're not.
Yeah.
It is always funny to me when a film has a sales agent involved and they want to demand a screening fee. They're like, well, you're charging tickets, you're making money. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know how much the theaters cost? We're losing money just to run a festival, and we survive off the submissions, because thankfully we do a good enough job that we're in the top 100. What do you call it?
On Film
Best
Freeway,
reviewed, the top 100 best reviewed festivals, so that people submit because the reviews are good.
Yeah.
But, so there, my anti-commercialism
there you go.
gets good reviews. But admittedly, if I was a smarter, more financially centered person,
you wouldn't have programmed it.
No, I would have programmed it, but we would have given you obviously the smarter thing is to give you a slot where there's your film in 15-minute Q&A and then get another film in there instead of I'm pretty sure for you whatever.
Yeah.
Saturday, was it Saturday at 10?
I think so, yeah.
Saturday at 10 is a slot for a feature. This film might be 62 minutes, but I'm just an idiot. I love to talk about movies.
Yeah,
so I was like,
great.
Okay, cool. We're going to have an extra long Q&A for this one. We're not going to have to worry about getting kicked out.
Yeah.
That'd be my dream. If you were someone else, my dream is one of these filmmakers one of these days is going to get one of those deals from some big studio and 7-figure whatever, and they're going to be like, I'm going to kick $100,000 at that nonprofit for a ride. I'm like, good, you get a ride, you get a tax write-off, and now we're going to have 1 hour of talk for every half hour of film. Like we're just going to watch half an hour of shorts, and then we're going to talk for an hour. We're totally not going to turn over this theater because I would love to just I would love to watch a feature and then talk about it all freaking night.
Yeah.
Why not? Who wants to make money?
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. This attitude is exactly why I'm not going to get the 7-figure deal that's going to kick you $100,000.
Oh, because you have the same attitude? I know, it's painful.
What can you do?
But that's why our festivals exist, is to show films like yours. And, look, we're still growing.
Yeah.
We actually did have a profitable day last year.
Nice.
At the November festival.
Oh, yeah.
Or December for
which you also did it at the Look.
Yeah,
right?
we also do a Look, but there was a day that we had 4 screenings. It was Saturday, and 3 out of 4 sold out. And I looked at the numbers, I'm like, oh my God, ticket sales cover the cost of the theater, not staff.
Yeah.
Forget it. Once you add staff, it's hopeless. We'd have to charge, maybe charge. What we should do is have like 5 $1,000 tickets, and then hope that like 5 rich people are like, yeah, I'll subsidize the whole night for y'all.
Right.
That's not a bad idea. But
good luck.
As you can imagine, I'm not very good at sitting down with a rich person and convincing them to do something kind.
Right. Yeah.
I know there are people who can do that.
Yeah.
I lack the skills.
Me too.
All right, well, and since your donut experience, you're working in construction, the set construction,
or
set props, everything, or
no, it's construction,
which are great jobs. Amusingly,
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. The house I'm pointing at, only Rene can see it because this is a podcast, is during COVID, they wanted to redo their garage inside into a playroom for their newborn. And so actually a set construction team that during COVID couldn't work because of COVID.
They
gave them an amazing bargain on redoing their garage is gorgeous inside. It's a gorgeous playroom.
The walls are just like going to fall over.
I think
it's
they
just
did.
flats. It's just one-sided flats.
But I was like, what an interesting idea. Yeah, right now during COVID, there's all these set construction people and they got hammers. They got nothing to nail right now. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. It's I'm doing that, I guess, more theoretically than actually, because it's been a long tail of the strike has been long, but hopefully back to regular work more soon.
Sure, and it's pretty rad to say you worked with Paul Thomas Anderson.
I didn't see
you
him.
Can get a lot of mileage out of that.
He was there.
Hey. You worked on Licorice Pizza.
No, I've been really, really lucky to the crew that I got in with does a lot of big movies. So I got into the union on the Fabelmans, and I don't know. It's been very, very exciting. But it's also interesting. Like, it's a side of I've worked art department before, but mostly because I've been working on smaller stuff before, I was mostly much, closer to camera. And this is like totally different experience of like building sets on stages, and much, only bigger productions really do that. So it's kind of, so it's an interesting other side of the industry, but more importantly, it pays decently, and I have health insurance now. And so those things are good.
Those things are good.
And having a union.
And still great. Writing? Are you?
So yes, so that's mostly what I've been doing with my time. I've been writing a lot. I'm working I've got 2 sort of feature ideas that I'm playing with, that I'm trying to both write and figure out how to shoot. And I got a camera recently. I'm sort of toying more with the idea of like shooting stuff myself, seeing if I can do stuff even smaller scale than Donut. I'm maybe shorts and things. I don't know. I'm playing with how DIY I can get, but we'll see how that goes.
I'm going to give another disclaimer. This is going to be a dumb comment, but if you ever feel like adapting Donut as a series, I kind of feel like it would work. Is that ridiculous, or have other people said
no?
It's because the environment and the characters are just so engaging.
Yeah,
it wouldn't suck to revisit with those people.
That's interesting.
For 8 half-hour episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if you have money, I'll entertain anything.
Knock on wood. After, what was it, Canopy?
Yeah.
Canopy's the best. TVHi is the second best streaming service. And if if we can get the damn subscribers in, if, that's one of the goals, is for TVHi to get enough subscribers to actually be successable, and then can turn around and use that subscription income. Yeah. $4.20 a month.
Yeah.
And we end up with about $1 of it, but because the platform's expensive.
But you can't change that pricing once you have 420 logged in.
Once you have the 420 logged in.
Sorry.
I should do my $1,000. $1,000 a month, but
$4,020.
$4,200.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, the idea would be to like reinvest it in the people who help make it successful.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
That'd be groovy to be like, hey, we can set up a space.
Yeah,
and just like the dumbass studios do, where they'd be like, hey, we'll pull out the donut shop again for another week.
Yeah.
shoot a season, and whenever you got the scripts ready,
right.
Pull it out.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's I never think about TV shows really.
Right,
I'm
right.
Like
Very cinema based,
movie
probably
brain.
from your upbringing and stuff, which is interesting because a lot of
maybe,
people nowadays, like now the series has taken over, right? Like people are like, I always find it kind of amusing when someone's like, "Yeah, no, I'm working on a series."
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, you think it's that easy to get in with Netflix? But maybe
it was for a while, right? It seems like they're tightening their belts a little bit now, but
but they still went after names at some point.
That's true. I don't know. It's I do like watching TV sometimes, but it's an interesting, like, a different way of telling stories that's kind of interesting. I don't know. And by interesting, I mean it's maybe not exactly how my brain works, but it's could be a fun puzzle at some point. But anyways, I haven't tackled that yet.
Random question.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Is there? Oh, I didn't warn you that when the conversation. By the way, I mean I'm going to brag. Like we've discussed. Not just Donut, but Your Life in Donut. Almost twice as long as the film runs.
Oh my God! Sorry.
I know. No, I like it. That is a compliment because we didn't run out of steam.
Yeah.
I believe the joy of a podcast is we just get to talk. But now we're up. We're current.
Yeah.
We're with what you're working on, and it's a pleasure to talk to you. So,
likewise.
Is there a website or social media that people should check out to follow you and or the team?
No, I don't know. People are
you're not a big...
People are on Instagram, I think, but mostly under their names or something. If you Google people, you can find them.
Right, so people should Google people. But there's not like a Donut the Movie, at Donut the Movie
No,
Instagram.
I probably should make a website at some point, but I haven't yet.
Amusingly, I don't think people look at websites anymore. Everyone just cares about Instagram.
I know, but I hate that. So I'd rather... I think it would be professional to have a website where people could contact me or something, maybe. But I haven't done it yet. So
understandable.
Anyways, yeah.
All right. Well, that's my effort at a segue for me to now. I'm going to ramble off all the social media and website shit for all the crap that's behind this podcast, because this podcast was born out of the 2 film festivals I run, Film Invasion Los Angeles and Sherman Oaks Film Festival. Those Q&As are really fun, but they're brief. Even though we go long, like we do 15, well, for years I bet we went longer, but...
Based on this, it seems like we probably did.
But the podcast was just a chance to really let people tell their story, and talk about the film without the harsh limit of the theater being like, we need to kick you out of here. And so, with that said, thank you everyone for listening. I'm sure you are still listening because that was really interesting. So, if you want to learn more about this podcast or the TV series born from it, go to discoverindiefilm.com. It's at DIF Wins on all the social media. We mentioned TVHi. Yeah, just go to TVHi. Just go to tvhi.com, do a free trial, and I believe if you use the code STREAM420, you get a month free trial instead of a week free trial. That's not bad.
It's only $420. It only costs $420.
It's only $420 a month. I mean, the conceit of TVHi is the idea that the films are excellent, and they might be even better if you watch them if you can use cannabis responsibly.
There you go. You can pay for a subscription and a donut from a local donut shop, and it'll be cheaper than one of those bougie donuts
It'll be cheaper than a bougie donut or one of those streaming services that keep raising their rates.
Oh yes, that too.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Cannabis
you can have
not
a donut.
Included, I guess. But,
I know a donut's like $1 still, right?
Yeah.
You go to a donut shop.
Give them $2. Why not?
Yeah, tip. Don't forget the tip jar, and don't steal the tip jar.
Yeah, don't steal.
But so that's Discovery Indie Film. I think I mentioned the TV series. Yeah, that's on Amazon Prime Video. If you just search for Discover Indie Film on Prime Video, currently there's 7 seasons of short films, just short films handpicked from the festival circuit. The kick-ass. All right. Film Invasion Los Angeles had the world premiere of Donut. If you want to learn more about that festival that we hold every June, and June is way too soon. Wow, I'm literally almost having a panic attack. Go to filminvasionla.com, and it's at filminvasionla on social media. Its sister festival every December is the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. You can learn about that one at shermanoaksff.com, and it's at shermanoaksff on social media. I'll just come out and brag. I'm just going to talk about it. We're expanding to 2 screens. 2 screens at once. Woohoo! So that staff that costs so much money in the theater lobby, they'll be busier. I'm like, yeah, they're not doing anything for an hour and a half in between screenings. We can have a screening every other hour. That means there's going to be someone else. I'm going to have an assistant programmer be like, do the Q&As in the other theater, because I don't think I can run back and forth. Although maybe I should, because... like I said, we lose money at the theater, so hiring another person to do Q&As. But anyway, is that all I had to say? I guess so. If you go to watchtvhi.com or at watchtvhi on most social media things, platforms, whatever you call them, that crap, we have to have it. Got no choice. I'm proud of you for not having it. But so that's all you need to know. Rene, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.